Welcome to the Village Talks. This is a space where physiology meets lived experience, where we talk honestly about the body, the nervous system, relationships, and the real questions families are asking without fear-based narratives or a one-size-fits-all answer. We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Jaimy.
And I'm Dr. Brittany. We're chiropractors, perinatal specialists, and humans who work closely with families through preconception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and early parenthood. Whether you're preparing for pregnancy, currently pregnant, newly postpartum, raising a little one, or supporting someone who is, you're in the right place.
Let's get into today's conversation.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of our podcast. I'm Dr. Brittany.
I'm Dr. Jaimy.
And we really wanted to start this podcast because we have heard so many differing opinions and confusing information. And we are constantly asked, why didn't anybody tell me this sooner? And so this is a podcast that we wanted to start to have those conversations and be real and be vulnerable and be honest about what we see every day in practice. Today's first episode, we're going to dive into our clinic, why Belly Bliss exists, and then what we wish parents knew.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So jumping off of what Dr. Brittany said and why we started the podcast is instead of parents finding information through their experience or finding out afterwards, this hopefully provides an opportunity for other providers and expecting parents to get some of this information ahead of time, maybe ask questions about what questions you should be asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always say you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's through no fault of your own. But hopefully this gives you an opportunity to get some information you didn't have before the episode.
Yeah.
For today's episode on why Belly Bliss exists, Belly Bliss was actually started by two friends of mine in 2008. One was a prenatal yoga instructor, and the other was a doula, childbirth educator, and prenatal and postpartum personal trainer. So they had strong interest in offering specialized services and classes for pregnancy. They really wanted to create a physical brick and mortar location where new and expecting parents could gather and offer an opportunity to create community. It started off with a community of birth providers. We had a meetup group back in the day. I don't know if meetup.com still exists, but kind of predates Facebook.
Yeah.
And so we would meet like once a month, gather for coffee and have these conversations. And then, we had our own community through that. And then the goal was to kind of create something for parents in Denver as well. And there wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
They were also really passionate about sustainable and organic living. And so we did have a large retail section. We had cloth diapers and breast pumps, and Amazon didn't exist, 2-day Prime shipping didn't exist. So if you wanted cloth diapers, your option were to go online, pick a brand, wait for them to come, see if they fit, ship them back. So we did have a lot of organic and sustainable clothing items, baby clothes, toys, things like that. So we, since inception, we've always had specialized care. We started off with chiropractic, acupuncture, massage therapy, psychology, and rolfing.
Nice. All related to the perinatal period.
Yes.
Yep.
So everybody was a specialty provider, had some training or certifications specific to pregnancy or postpartum. All of our yoga classes were prenatal focused. All of our yoga teachers were then and still are prenatal yoga teacher certified, Baby and Me classes. And at the time, it was the only place in Denver that had any of those classes. We are still Denver's only dedicated perinatal yoga studio. Yeah. And then offering out of hospital childbirth education resources, which we still have. So the foundation of why we were created absolutely still exists. I think the biggest change is we have very little retail now.
Yeah.
The need for that is no longer really there. We do have a little bit of stuff, obviously, what we recommend for patients really frequently. And we've grown, right? Yeah. The clinic team has grown. We have multiple providers under each discipline. We very similar offerings in terms of yoga and fitness classes. We have a lot more workshops, childbirth education, parenting workshops. So, foundationally, I think the community culture, both for our team perspective and the patient perspective, client perspective, is still there. It's been an interesting shift from pre-COVID through COVID.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it's coming back.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think post-COVID, finally, people are consistently and comfortably seeking out more of that in-person community.
Yeah.
There are a lot more options online right now. I think that works for some people. Flexibility. Do you have childcare? Is your kiddo sick? But it's just not quite the same experience as getting into a room with people.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
Community, I feel like we're far enough post-COVID times where community is really a thing again, which I'm really excited for, and why I love being a part of Belly Bliss, because we do offer that community space. We have the yoga where, parents can come together and share their experiences, but also get a little movement and then get a little play with, the baby and me classes and things like that. But then they can also not have to drive all around Denver for providers when it comes to more of the self-care, holistic wellness side of things, preventative, things like that, making sure that we're giving back to our moms who are newly postpartum, or the parents who need more education outside of a hospital setting because they're curious and sometimes they don't get those resources readily available to them. So I'm super excited that Belly Bliss is continuing to grow in that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only so much we can do under one roof. We are limited by physical space. And, as you know, I'm pretty picky about who we bring onto the team.
Absolutely.
So we were, as I said, founded with the goal of offering specialized care with those who are trained and certified as much as they can be within their own specialty or their own discipline. So, there should always be this just inherent guarantee of safety for everything that we do. I think that, early on in getting out and talking to the community and talking to providers and explaining who we are and what we do, that was really important for us to establish that foundation of safety. So that anyone and everyone who is referring or recommending or considering coming in knows that everything we do is tailored to pregnancy and postpartum, and everything we do is going to be safe for the mom, the pregnant parent, the baby, no matter what. So that, we still continue with that. So it is challenging to find, not every type of exercise and fitness discipline has a prenatal training or certification. Even like within massage therapy, it is challenging to find really good prenatal trainings.
Even in chiropractic.
So it isn't always easy to find people that are going to be able to contribute to our team in a way that we feel is always safe and beneficial. So sometimes that impacts who's on the clinic team. We have a great team right now. And, do what we can to offer and expand upon the education trainings for those who do join the team.
Absolutely.
So from that perspective, we do have a really good team in place right now in the clinic and also on the studio side of things.
Oh yeah.
Our instructors are great. Our first prenatal yoga teacher training starting this year. So that's very exciting. That's about 4 years in the making.
That's great.
But I mean, that's kind of the
heart of it.
And still the heart of it is, get everybody in, they feel safe here, and not just safe from a perspective of what am I going to do? What am I going to receive? But also creating a physical space that is a safe space, right? So lots of tears, lots of feeding struggles, lots of blowouts, so many blowouts. So we call our waiting room the living room, and it's set up like a living room, and families do spend time there before and after appointments, feeding, chatting. There's the people who are standing there waiting to go back for their appointment and somebody comes out or somebody being like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I didn't know you came
I know.
here.
That's some of my favorites. Like, what?
Yeah.
My friend comes here too.
Yeah. My coworker's here.
Yeah.
Or somebody that they haven't maybe seen in a couple of years. They know each other from, you know, a
Past
yoga class in their
groups,
20.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. From some other part of their life
Yeah.
and then cross paths again in this new stage of life.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun for them to connect on a deeper level or maybe reconnect in a way that they didn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we have moms who were together in the prenatal yoga classes
Yep.
and they were like, had their kids all around the same time and they're still friends and all their kids are growing up together.
Yep.
And that's really hard, especially in a place like Denver where a lot of people aren't from here. And it's hard because they don't have family or they don't have a big community here. And so the heart, I really think of Belly Bliss is to create that community space too.
Yep.
So people can have those connections outside of the space and continue to grow their village.
Yes.
In Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The place to meet new friends, make new friends.
Yeah.
And know that despite other aspects of your life that may be different, you know, early pregnancy and early parenthood can be isolating and lonely anyway.
Yeah.
And when you don't have family, friends around, it's even more so.
Yeah.
And so that is our hope, is that you, through whatever avenue at Belly Bliss, you are going to make one or two, hopefully, good friends, decent friends, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that you can call, can rely on. And if not, that we still remain this physical space where you can come when you need to be held, you need to get out of the house, you just need to be in a space where people understand how challenging this day or this week or this phase is. And, you know, there's no pressure from us when you walk in the door. Yeah. It's all good. Don't apologize because your legs are hairy. Don't apologize because your hair is greasy. Like we really, none of us are bothered by that.
On your clothes or if baby just blew out in the car. Like it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Just come here for whatever it is that you need on that day.
Absolutely.
Our goal is to provide it. Sometimes it's a hug.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a class.
Maybe it's a tincture.
It can, you know, we're just there to provide what support we can, but also hoping that as a member of our community, you also have an opportunity to potentially be a support person for someone else, right?
Yeah.
As you meet friends and make those connections.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, yeah. Yay. So I would say that's a great segue into the other half of it, right? Because Belly Bliss was created for all of those things and also to help support parents in what we wish we thought they knew or like hoped that they knew and things that, you know, and it's no fault of anybody's except there's so much information out there and there's so many different schools of thought and so many different belief systems, especially if you know, culturally are coming from somewhere else and then, you know, how your providers were trained and things like that. So what are some of the things that, you know, as Belly Bliss has created and shifted and grown into what it is now, like things that you're commonly seeing of what you wish parents knew more about?
Yeah.
I know.
It's hard to kind of narrow it down, right? Yeah. I think over the years, I think one of the things that we hear most often is what you said, like, I wish that I had known sooner. And I do think that for a lot of new parents, they are getting most of their information from their birth care provider, which is great.
Yep.
You know, that's not Dr. Google. That's not your mom's experience from 30 years ago.
Not
you know,
ChatGPT.
No, yes, exactly. So that is a good source. But I also think that parents expect that one person, that one provider to kind of be the end all be all for every bit of information that is out there.
Yeah.
And they simply can't, you know, like they are the experts on what they do. And I think they, you know, their most important role is keeping you and your baby safe, you know, drawing blood, looking at labs, you know, monitoring baby's growth. It's absolutely important and crucial. And there is no substitute for that prenatal care. But to expect them to understand everything about everything that's out there.
Especially from a functional standpoint too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And from an exercise standpoint,
Mhm.
I joke with people, you don't want me performing your C-section. Like, I'm not trained in that, right? Like, this is not my lane. But in the same vein, you can't expect your OB, right, or your midwife to understand the nuances of why massage therapy may or may not be safe for you.
Yeah.
Or why these certain poses in a yoga class are not ideal
Like
with your
lunges or
pubic joint
something.
pain.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
So, we are very much specialists in what we do, and we understand deeply all of the things that pertain to what we do.
Yeah.
And so within our team of specialists, we understand very deeply about each discipline.
Yeah.
So cumulatively as a team, we have a lot of knowledge about the things that we do.
Yeah. And we work in collaboration together,
Yes.
which gives us all kind of a little bit more understanding and the right
Yes.
questions to ask
Yes.
outside of that too.
Yes. And so I think that, we, in terms of healthcare, we do exist in a time where things have become very specialty focused. I think there are pros and cons to this. But for us in particular, I think what I would like parents to know is that if you're not getting your questions answered completely, keep asking.
Yeah.
Keep asking the same person again and again. If you're feeling rushed or like it was addressed, but you still have questions, or seek those answers elsewhere. And sometimes this is an online forum. Sometimes this is a support group. Sometimes it is going to a class. There's almost certainly somebody out there that has the answers. It can sometimes be challenging to find the right person that has the answers. And in terms of like not knowing what questions to ask, I think it's, do ask your, if you have friends who've recently had babies, I think that may be the most realistic perspective for what things are going to look like for you 6 months from now or 12 months from now.
Yeah.
But also, what do you have in common with these friends or these coworkers, right? Is the only thing in common that you share an office space?
Yeah.
Because one person's dream birth is another person's absolute nightmare. So
not everyone's meant to have a home birth.
No.
Not everyone's meant to be in a hospital. It's just very different for each person.
And so I'll see, people will ask in online groups and some of these forums and communities, like, who do you recommend for an OB, or which hospital should I give birth at? I'm like, well, there's a lot of questions that really should go into that decision. It starts with you and your partner having a discussion about what are your ideas of birth, right? So it is impacted by how were you raised? How were you birthed?
Yep.
Do you have siblings and friends who've given birth? Were those positive or negative experiences in their opinion? How do you feel about their feelings about their experiences?
Have you seen birth outside of a movie setting?
Yes, right? Like if all of your ideas about birth are based on TV shows and movies, that's probably not super realistic. So I encourage them to get out there. There are lots of podcasts. There are documentaries. There's a ton of amazing videos on YouTube, where people are uploading birth videos. So don't fall down a rabbit hole of big and scary. I think we see people do that a lot. They're almost afraid to go out and search because big and scary sometimes is what gets put forth. But curate your search. Look for calm birth, gentle birth, natural birth. Mom is happy in birth.
Birth experiences. Yay.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, what we hope for everyone of the patients and clients that walks in the door is that when they look back on it, they feel that they've had a positive birth experience. And often what that comes down to is feeling like you have choice, feeling like you understood and were informed about everything. And that is almost certainly going to mean you're getting information from multiple sources. So we love to be a good resource for information, of course, for all the things that we do and offer under our roof, but also making recommendations for good podcasts, good YouTube channels, good social media channels to follow that are giving good accurate information and hopefully get you thinking more about what you want and maybe what questions you should be asking.
Yeah. And I feel like too, a lot of times when it comes to preparing for this time, unfortunately, most people spend more time preparing to buy a car than they do to understand and research everything that goes into pregnancy, everything that goes into birth, everything that goes into being newly postpartum and a new parent and taking care of a newborn until they're already in it. Yeah. Like I would never buy a new car not knowing anything about the car and then just like drive it off the lot and hope for the best. Yeah. And be like, I'll figure it out when I get there. Yep. And that's what I see a lot of parents do. But I think it's because that's how we've been raised and how we've been taught, because that's what generations before us did. And what I'm hoping for, partly with this podcast and as we grow and all that kind of stuff, is to help parents prepare before they're face down in it and like trying to just like sift through the weeds and figure out what do I want for my birth? I don't know. Like I'm already 12 weeks pregnant. Right? Yeah. All those different things can be really overwhelming. And actually what I have found, it makes the pregnancy more stressful, puts more stress on the couple together. And so I hope that through this that we can, encourage parents, maybe take your hospital birthing class and then let's explain why we think we should take a birthing class outside of a hospital setting too, right? Not that hospital settings are good or bad, but every hospital birthing class is different based off of what hospital you're at. If you're at a birth center or if you're doing a home birth, they're all different information. And to kind of have a more well-rounded understanding of it, I would say we both agree that it's really great to have multiple sources of that, right?
Yes. It's good to have options.
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents haven't asked any of these questions. They didn't know they had options. Yeah. There are so many options now that it can quickly become overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And so we kind of try to narrow that down for them. Yeah. And, here are the ones that we recommend, not because they're the only ones that are any good, but because we think it's important. Yeah. So when parents ask like, well, what classes should I take? And I'm like, look at the list of workshops that we have. We have them for a reason. Yes. And when we look at adding new educational classes and workshops, it's because as a team, we know that parents need the information. Mm-hmm. The parents may not know that they need the information. Yeah. So when they're like, what should I take? I'm like, look at our list. It doesn't mean you have to take our classes, but these are the things that over the last 17 and a half years, our team of, currently over 20, we've sometimes had teams upwards of 30 or 40. Yeah. It's all of that community knowledge, all of our cumulative education going into making thoughtful decisions and curating what do we offer? Yeah. Because what do we think parents need? Mm-hmm. And it's a lot. I think we have like 15 workshops. Not everybody's taking 15 workshops, right? Totally. Like you only have so much time and you can only cram so much information into your brain. So, but there are going to be some that are, some parents come in and they're just scared to death of their child choking on solids, like for whatever reason, right? Whether it comes from their own experience as a child or a sibling that choked in a restaurant, like that's their number one thing. Great. Take our CPR and first aid class. Like you're going to feel a lot better after you do that. Yep. Other parents have concerns about how is this going to impact my relationship? We have a workshop for that. So our hope, even just by having this list of here are the things we can teach you, is here are the questions you should be asking. Here are the things you should be considering, right? And if you look at this workshop and you're like, I already know all that. Great, don't take that workshop. Take a different one. Yeah.
And then you think, there might be some tidbits in there. I mean, I learn every day in practice. Like I learn something new in every birth I attend, every client that we're working with, like anyone who's dealing with latch issues or things like that. Like I'm learning something new every day. Like there's no way we know all of it.
No. And every individual body is different.
Absolutely.
We can be composed of the same parts theoretically, but what got you to today is very different, right? So what we bring into the pregnancy, it stirs up emotions in both parents. There are physical changes, there are hormonal changes. So there's all of that. And then there's, what are our thoughts about birth? Do I feel good about things? Am I afraid of certain things? There's a lot to consider. So I think ask as many questions as you know to ask. Yeah. Get every one of those questions answered as completely as needed to feel satisfied with the information you've gathered and the answer that you have.
Yeah.
And hopefully that actually has you asking more questions.
Yeah.
And if you are in a place where like, I really don't even know what questions to ask, start listening to podcasts, start watching videos, start following, people in the birth world who are putting out good high quality educational content, because then it's answers.
Yeah.
And then it's going to answer questions that you didn't know you had. And again, hopefully lead to more questions.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think the whole curiosity is the name of the game there.
Yes.
Just be curious always. It's like number one, be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you stop asking questions, everything's headed south.
Yeah. I know.
And not because the information you have isn't reliable or because the one person you're asking isn't trustworthy. But you got to get information from more than one source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell all my doula clients, right, is when we're creating a birth preferences thing, I don't like calling it a plan because rarely does birth ever go to plan.
Yes.
But we plan A through Z, right? There's certain childbirth education courses that don't even talk about C-section.
Yeah.
We're not going to put it in the universe, so it's not going to happen. Well, what if it does?
Yeah.
Right? Those are the things where I'm like, we're not preemptively like planning for a disaster or a tragedy, but you also want to know in that situation, what do you want?
Yeah.
Same thing with like, would you rather have a C-section or a 4th degree tear? Because we have to use forceps. This recently happened to one of my clients, right? We had to use forceps to get baby out, and they were preparing her for a 4th degree tear, but we had talked about it before, so she wasn't afraid of it.
Yeah.
She ended up getting a 1 degree tear. Yay.
Yay.
But right, like, oh, so great.
Yeah.
But being able to talk about those different things that happen is not to scare you, but it's so you can have informed decision making and have confidence going into those situations as well, which is why we tout curiosity so much, is to know all the things that can happen in birth, not just the things that can go wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's what does delayed cord clamping mean? Depends on who you talk to, right? So those different clarifying questions can be super helpful in your experience, preconception all the way through parenting, to be your decisions and not somebody else's decision, and giving your power away to a provider who you trust and might have really great information, but it's still not your decision. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's the importance too with the birth preferences, right? Is I also don't like to call it a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but know that birth usually doesn't go according to plan, regardless of what you've planned.
Yeah.
And so while it is important to, some people are like, well, I don't want to put a plan together because I have no control over it. I'm like, that's fair. But one of the most important parts of developing that plan or list of preferences or birth dream or whatever you want to call it is looking at all the possibilities and beginning to develop some type of feeling or perception or choice around all of the different options, not because you expect it to happen or it has to happen, but you really don't want the first time that you're faced with anything to be in birth.
Yeah.
Right. You want to have at least heard of this beforehand. And even if it's just a gut reaction of like, oh, I remember that I didn't want to do that, but I don't remember why, but I remember that I didn't want to do that. So let me ask a question about it. Or, oh yeah, I remember reading about that and that sounded great. Let's do that.
Yeah.
I don't ever want people making fear-based decisions in birth. Yeah. I think that's where we oftentimes will see parents who walk away from birth with a less than positive outcome. I want to say outcome. Mom and baby are healthy, right? At the end of the day, that's the most important thing, but it's not the only important thing.
Yes.
Right? You want to walk away with a positive feeling, right? With feeling that you had a positive birth experience, whether it went the way you wanted it to or went dramatically different.
Yeah.
And I've had, I don't know, dozens, hundreds of patients over the last 21 and a half years whose birth went wildly differently than they had expected it to. And those who were informed and felt like they were part of the decision-making process walked away from those births feeling like, yeah, like, wasn't what I planned for, but I feel really good about that. And that was my first birth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like my first birth was
We'll talk
wildly
about that.
different. But I look back and it was nothing but a positive experience.
Yeah.
And there are, other parents who, one of my sister-in-laws, for example, did take a childbirth education course that did not discuss C-section. And so this was then proposed to them as a likely outcome in like the 51st hour of labor. And in a moment of panic, I was like, okay, I'm here. I have this information. Let me talk to you about C-section. Their provider hadn't discussed it because they were with a midwife, right? That wasn't the plan. And it wasn't discussed in their childbirth ed class. So they had no idea what that looked like.
And what possibilities are there?
Yes.
Like if it's non-emergent, for the most part, I mean, you can make it a really beautiful experience too. There are so many different things that you can ask for in those settings that people have no idea even exist. Like dimming the lights, for example.
Yes.
Because you're in an OR, right?
Can we, can I keep an arm free? Can I drop the drape? Like sometimes these are possible and sometimes they aren't.
Exactly.
Most providers, if they're not offering it, it's not because it's not possible or they don't want you to have it, but they have a system, right? Like, especially in a surgical situation where everything has to be sterile and there really does have to be very meticulous processes in place. So it's not that they're not open to it, but they need to plan for it.
Yeah.
And so that's where even knowing what the possibilities are, having that discussion with your provider beforehand, is super helpful.
Yeah.
So the plan or whatever you want to call it, you're not putting that list together because you really expect things to go that way. Your provider cannot make any of those things happen if they don't know what you want.
Exactly.
And you can't figure out what you do and don't want unless you start to put together a list of what you do and don't want.
Questions and exploring things. Absolutely.
And seeing what's possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are possible in one place of birth and they're not in another. They might be possible with one provider and not with another. I had a patient who switched providers at 38 weeks because there was something that I think to most people probably felt really minor. It was a type of monitoring and she was absolutely insistent on it. And her provider was like, I don't do that. And it's not an option at this hospital. And she's like, well, I'm not giving birth here then. And that was her sticking point.
Yeah.
That was the hill, right?
Yeah.
That was the most important thing to her. And so she switched providers super late in the game.
Yeah.
And then got what she wanted, had a great birth,
Yeah.
with somebody that I think she met like once or twice. But to her, that was a very positive birth experience, right? That's what we want is she felt empowered and that one thing that was important to her, she got what she wanted and she had a great birth outcome in her mind. So, ask questions.
Be curious.
Yeah.
Things.
Be curious.
Yeah. I would say one thing too that I wish more parents knew. I lost it. Hold on. Oh, dang it. I had it in my brain and then it just blanked. Oh no. If anything pops up for you, go ahead.
I think it's important for parents to understand that they can do things differently than how their friends did them or their siblings did them or their parents did them. Our generation of new parents now have access to way more information than any previous generation, right? Like this
Which
is,
could be like a good thing or
again,
bad thing,
pros
right?
and cons. This is the first generation having kids that have had technology in their life for most of their lives. They've had easy access to information, so much information. So I think on one hand, they are a little bit more discerning than, but they're also seeking answers. And they are seeking answers from outside sources a little bit more often.
Absolutely.
I think it's important for parents to understand that there is often a delay between when something starts getting talked about in a parenting community or in a birth community and when it gets implemented in a healthcare system, right? Because there does need to be some research. There does need to be some data for this to become the new way that we do things. And so I sometimes see frustration from patients in that perspective of like, oh, well, I read this study and it said this. And, my OB or midwife says they don't do that. And I'm like, well, because there's only been one study, right? And so how big was the study? Is there another study ongoing? Like how quick and easy? Yeah. Like some things are going to get implemented sooner in a teaching hospital than in a birth center, for example, right? So I think that's something too for them to understand is that if you're being told no, ask why.
Yep.
Right? Like, is it because this is a policy? Is it because it's unsafe? Is it because you've never heard of it?
Yeah.
If you're interested in it, get more information, ask questions. But I do think it that level of delay between what's possible and what's become the standard. Yeah. And just understanding that it's okay to take a different path.
Yeah.
Than if you take the same path because you didn't know that there were options, then okay, you learn along the way. But if early on something's not sitting right, instinctually, you're like, I don't like this provider, I don't like this location, I want to do this differently than what I thought was possible. Look at all this new information that I've gathered, and this is really exciting to me. Go with that.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
it can be hard.
You can pivot. It's okay.
Yeah. And sometimes you are getting pressure from a partner, your family, your partner's family, your friends. Yeah. Welcome to the judgment of parenthood.
Oh yeah. Starts
it's
the second you get pregnant.
For some people it starts before, right? Think about how many people are struggling with fertility and they don't share that with people, right? Yeah. That's a whole other episode. Absolutely. Right? I had a friend who chose home birth for her second, and no one in either of their families knew until after baby was here, because they were confident they wouldn't have support. They didn't feel like justifying their decisions. Yeah. They didn't have family locally. So there wasn't anybody to call and, have them drive to the hospital. Yeah. And it was a beautiful birth experience. And, I think sometimes ask for forgiveness and not permission. Yeah. Can be okay, right? This is a decision for you and your partner. Yeah. And I don't know, it can cause hard feelings to not have other people involved, but you're the one who's living with the outcome. You're the one who's going to sit and feel good or feel guilty about the decisions that were made. Yeah. So you have to make decisions based on your feelings, nobody else's.
Yeah, seriously. I remember what I was going to say. For the other thing I want parents and even just our community to know and understand why is around the third trimester, towards the end of third trimester, when we're at like 37, 36 weeks, and all of a sudden everybody wants to start sharing their horror stories about what happened to them in birth to prepare the women and the families and the parents who are going into this experience, what they didn't know because they didn't know beforehand. And it's not so much of like, don't do this, but it's more of a, hey, this might not be the best time to share this experience. And, I know it's coming from a place of really good and like deep yearning that they wish they would have known this information going into it. But certain things that we've heard like around that time for what our clients share with us, care to share some things you've heard of like, hey, let's not say that.
The amount of unsolicited advice is rampant in pregnancy and postpartum. I don't know. It's interesting. I think over the years, one of the things that stands out for me with people who are overzealously sharing their very negative birth experiences is that every time they tell that birth story, they are processing. They're still processing their birth. Yeah. They're still dealing with their own emotions. And I would love for all of those people to find an outlet or a therapy or something to really integrate all of, have the difficulty acknowledged, the fear acknowledged, and be able to integrate that. So I will often say to patients, like, take it with a grain of salt and remember it's all about them. Yeah. It's not about you. It doesn't forecast your experience. They're not sharing it. They either are sharing it, as you said, from a place of concern, because they're worried about you, they don't want the same thing to happen to you, or they didn't know that it was possible and they want to make sure that you know that it's possible so it doesn't come as a surprise to you. So I do think for the most part it is coming from a place of wanting to make something better for you in some way. It doesn't usually land that way. It's not usually received that way. So I don't think it's easy for anybody to just shut that conversation down. Totally. I think you just have to kind of close your ears, let it go in one ear and out the other, and not hold on to it, and not integrate it, and not project it on your own experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think we've both seen this a few times in the last year or so, where patients have a friend or a family member, a coworker, somebody that they know personally, or someone they know personally knows this person personally, where they've had a pretty scary or negative outcome from birth. Yeah. And so it's very different when it feels very personal, when it's happened to someone that you know. Yeah. It is really challenging to not take that on and project that onto your own potential birth experience. So I'm like, sometimes this is where statistics are helpful. Yeah. Right. Like, is it possible that could happen to you? Absolutely. Is it probable? No. Yeah. Right. Like, this happens to 1 in 300,000 women, and somebody that it happened to. Yep. So statistically, it's highly, highly unlikely. Different personality types. Some people hear these things and it just rolls off their back and they don't think twice. And other people definitely can kind of fixate on it, especially if it already feeds into one of their largest fears around birth. Yeah. I think just nod and smile is kind of, I mean, I certainly received a fair amount of unsolicited advice, and it was, usually from people who didn't know what I did, or, what my background and training were. I can think of one man in particular who tried to give me advice that I was kind of like, dude, first, no uterus, no opinion. And secondly, you're just some random guy sharing a story. Like, I know way more about this than you do. So I just kind of nod and smile, It's like, okay, thanks. And then walked away, It's pretty easy for me to ignore unsolicited advice, especially on a topic that I feel confident in. Yeah. But, most of our parents don't have any professional education around it. They don't have any training around it. And if it's their first baby, they don't have any experience around it. Totally. Right. And anything that we haven't experienced is unknown to us
and scary,
right? Yeah. And creates some level of anxiety because you really don't know what to expect or what you're going to get.
Even like for me, I go through it all the time. Like, I haven't had any kids yet, and I have this knowledge and all this experience, and like, I have no idea who I'm going to be in birth. Like, I have no idea what it's going to look like, and I'm just like, I'm going to leave it up to the universe. Whatever happens, it's going to happen. But also, you can have all this information and still have that anxiety, and you can still have, yes, I know this outcome is minimal and like 0.01% chance that it might actually happen. But if it lingers in the back of your mind, right, those are some real conversations you have to have with yourself. Yes. That a lot of people suppress or just don't even like talk about or bring up, or, intrusive thoughts are real.
Absolutely.
In pregnancy and in postpartum. So especially when people bring those experiences and there is that unsolicited advice, sometimes it can really impact how you feel. And if we don't address that, then that's where I feel and where I've seen most of the things kind of manifest in that way. Like, one of our clients who had a head down baby and then was processing her first birth which was very traumatic. And then baby flipped and was breech. Mm-hmm. She was like, I'm going to get induced on a Saturday. This is a Monday. What just happened? Right. Those things are very real. And it can be whether you're processing your own or whether you're hearing other people process theirs. And so just knowing that there are outlets and avenues to be able to work through it so it doesn't impact you and manifest in that way too, I think is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anytime a fear or a sense of anxiety comes up, you have to address it. Yeah. Right. And whether it's on your own, just thinking about it through meditation or whatever practices you have around stress management and addressing emotions, whether that's through a professional, right? Like a therapist, not
running in third trimester, please.
Yeah.
We talk about that.
I did not run in third trimester, but running is like, that's my biggest stress reducer.
Absolutely. I
right?
know, yeah.
So again, that's a whole other episode on, fitness in pregnancy and exercise in pregnancy. Can you utilize the tools that you have, right? That have worked for you previously. So we have some patients who have been previously medicated and have stopped, who are still on medication, and it's not working, right? Like, what are we doing to address those issues as they come up? Because if you're not somebody who can just let it roll off your back, talk to your partner about it.
Yep.
Talk to your provider about it. Like, talk to somebody about it, right? Like, you got to process it, because I do think there's a little bit of the, you don't want to put out into the universe, I want a C-section, if you don't want a C-section. But also, if you never consider it, then there's the potential that you end up in a place where now we have a new fear unlocked, right? So I think there is a happy medium between spending all of your time thinking about it, because then it's like, I want this. Really, you don't want this, but like, think about it, but don't ruminate on it, right? Don't think about it round and round and round. And if that is happening, because that happens for a lot of people, especially around things that they have fear or anxiety around, go back to your tools. And if you don't have them, talk to somebody who can give you some tools, right? Just try to get to the root of it. Is there anything you can do about it? So a lot of times birth preferences are to give us a sense of control based on what are we most afraid of. Unfortunately, some of the decisions are fear-based, right? But it is that sense of, if I make this decision, I'm less likely to have this outcome, right? Or if I put this in place, I'm less likely to have this outcome or have to make this decision, right? So in that sense, I don't think that it's negative to make a decision based on the potential things that might happen that you're afraid of. If making that decision now makes you less afraid of birth, right? So you're still not in control of every step of this outcome, but why was that particular bit of advice or that particular story especially triggering for you? Why do we think you continue thinking about it and you feel really anxious about it? What can you do now to reduce the likelihood of that happening? What steps can you put into your birth preferences? What conversations can you have with your provider? Is there one extra lab test that you can run? Like, what's going to make you feel better about it right now? And what's going to reduce the likelihood that fear interferes with your birth?
Yay. Cool. I think that's a good stopping point for our first episode.
I think that's enough tangents for one day.
Awesome. If you found today's episode helpful, you can subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave a review. It helps this podcast reach the families who need it most. You can find us at Belly Bliss in Denver and online for resources, workshops, and support. Until next time, take care of your body and trust its wisdom.